Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses for your service and for your time this afternoon. I have the privilege of representing New Mexico's 2nd District, home to White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base. Both bases face a unique set of challenges, particularly around the availability of quality housing for service members and their families. Holloman Air Force Base is currently at 99% capacity, probably about 100% by now, for on-base housing, forcing service members and their families to live off base in a rural community where options are limited and more expensive, if they even exist at all. And so even on base, the housing isn't much better. It's outdated, it's deteriorating, and it fails to meet the standards of what we owe our airmen and women and our service members. Lieutenant General Spain, the department's status quo for housing has been insufficient. Beyond simply updating aging units, what steps is the Air Force taking in fiscal year 26 to meet the housing demands at rural installations like Holloman?
Thanks, Representative Vasquez. Appreciate your time and the question and the opportunity to talk about Holloman. Number one, for Holloman specifically, we just initiated a housing requirements analysis effort that's ongoing that should complete this summer, and that'll give us specific recommendations to work with the community to adjust our capacity at that location. And that's typically how we do that, and how we intend to move out in other rural locations is a housing analysis, assess the capacity, and then what way we can work with the community directly to improve that circumstance.
Thank you, Lieutenant General. I appreciate that, and I know our airmen and women and some of their families, as well as the unaccompanied service members, really appreciate that, especially being home to the MQ-9 Reaper program and the pilot trainers who are so critical to our defense here. At White Sands Missile Range, much of the housing on base also dates back to post-World War II era, and it's seen minimal upgrades in the decades since. General Mingus, last summer, White Sands Missile Range and Fort Bliss were supposed to receive roughly $7 million from the Army's Installation Management Command to improve legacy housing. That funding never materialized. Could you explain why those funds were not distributed, when White Sands can expect to receive those funds, and what the Army is doing in fiscal year 26 to improve housing quality in rural bases?
Yes, sir. Start off to echo your point. WSMR is incredibly important to us. That's where our Army Test and Evaluation Command does the vast majority of our high-end missile tests, and anything that requires range and quality of life there. We've also designated that recently as a remote and isolated place, which helps with a lot of the things you're talking about. That $7 million is still earmarked against that improvements. That proposal is about ready to go out, so I think you'll see some movement on that here shortly, sir.
Thank you so much. I thank you and the community of Las Cruces and Alamogordo and the folks at White Sands Missile Range. Thank you for that. Last week, I voted in this committee to provide this department with an additional $9 billion for quality of life improvements, including housing, because I firmly believe we owe it to our service members. But I also don't want to see that money wasted. General Mingus and Lieutenant General Spain, how will you ensure that this additional funding is a good use of taxpayer dollars to provide adequate housing and additional quality of life services for members in rural districts like mine?
Specific to the reconciliation bill, sir?
That's correct.
Yeah. We expect, and I think it'll be about equal across the services, so I think we'll see about $2 billion. If you remember from our testimony last year, both the Secretary and the Chief, we were able to take our 255 barracks that needed renovation. We were able to deal with almost all of those minus 55, which this $2 billion is already earmarked against those 55 that still need to be moved from Q3 to Q4 up to Q1, Q2.
Thanks again. So for the Air Force, I think we're going to be able to, well, once we see what the details are of the language and of the legislation, we'll know exactly what is coming to the Air Force and what we'll be able to accomplish. We certainly have a significant deferred maintenance package in this space across the Air Force, and a long list of things that we'll need to complete based on the additional funding if it comes to fruition. But certainly housing, family housing and unaccompanied housing are top on the list for the Air Force. We have a long list of projects that we can complete if we are granted the authority.
Thank you, Lieutenant General, and thank you, General, for your answers. Housing is one of the biggest challenges that we face, especially in places like Alamogordo, New Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico. And if folks don't have a safe, affordable place to live, it impacts not only their well-being, but their ability to do their jobs, and that affects our readiness as a nation. Readiness equals national security, and so investing in housing, infrastructure, and quality of life pays dividends down the line. Thank you all for your time and for your service to our country. I yield back the remainder of my time, Mr. Chairman.